So you're welcome once again to the Grade A category class for the Music Rudiment short course. At the end of this course, you should be able to understand what music exactly is and being able to identify and name various elements on the music stave, be able to understand what accidentals are, understand the values of musical notes and also rests, understand time signatures and also important terms and signs in music. Okay, music. We can see what is music. Just like you can see, music is defined as the combination of sounds that are pleasant to the ear. You may find out that if you ask someone and say, what is music? That person might actually be telling you, okay, because you should be able to look at music in form of sounds. Many of us hear sounds here and there, sounds here, sounds there, and all that. But we're talking about music now. It's not just sounds. We're talking about sounds that are pleasant to the ear. So that's what makes it music. Okay, if somebody just comes down and just shouted, "Wow!" Okay, that's a sound, but it's not music. Okay, so if you are asked what is music, you should be able to define it in such a way that you make it clear that it is also pleasant. It's a combination of sounds and it is pleasant to the ear. Okay, very, very important. Okay, there are three properties of music. We have duration, we have pitch, we have volume. These three properties of music are very important, and this is what builds the framework of music itself. The pitch. The scientific word for pitch is frequency, and the second one is duration, and then the third is the volume. Okay. Initially, if you look at a music song sheet, you will see them full of lines, lines and spaces and all that. So those lines constitute what we call the staff. It constitutes the staff. So what is a staff? A staff consists of 5 parallel lines and 4 equal spaces, numbered from the bottom upwards. So numbered from the bottom upwards means that you will number the bottom, the most bottom line as line 1, the second one as line 2, the third as line 3, the fourth as line 4, the fifth as line 5. And then in between them, you find spaces, just like you can see on my screen. Can you see the way I'm pointing my cursor? You will see that I'm pointing my cursor to the first space, the second space, the third space, and the fourth space right now. Okay. So basically, the staff consists of the 5 parallel lines and 4 equal spaces. All right. Okay. When you now put a sign at the beginning of the line, when you put a sign at the beginning of the line, these signs are usually called the clef. When you put that sign at the beginning of those lines, then your staff is no longer a staff. It becomes what we call a stave. So when you put the clef at the beginning of the staff becomes a stave. Okay, don't get that confused. When you put a clef is just is a musical sign that is put at the beginning of the staff. That word clef is derived from the Latin word, which means key. It means that Latin word is clavis. It means key. So when you put it at the beginning of the staff, then the whole thing is no longer being called a staff anymore. It's now called a stave. All right. In music, we use 7 letters of the English alphabet. So you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. In music, you cannot have H, I, J, K, L, M. No. when you're using letters in music, is either you find it to be A or B or C or D or E or F or G. When you're done with G, you want to still name anyone, you still have to put A. You go back to A. So basically, that is the A to Z of the alphabet of music. It's between A and G. You don't go beyond G, okay? So A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. All right, we'll be using this very shortly now. Let's look at the different types of clef. Remember what I told you, if you can remember. When you put a clef at the beginning of the staff, it becomes a word. If you know it, can you just say it right there? Can unmute your mic? Stave. It's stave, not a clave. It's stave. S-T-A-V-E. It becomes a stave. Okay. All right. So, but when we put those clef signs at the beginning of the staff, and we put those clef signs at the beginning of the staff, we don't have only one type of sign like that. We don't have only one type of clef. We have 4 types. We have 4 types. Although 2 of them are the most common in music, especially in singing hymns, you find that the 2 of them which are most common is the treble or G clef, and the second one which is most common is the F clef or the bass clef. So it's either you have the G clef or the F clef, or you can call it the treble clef or the bass clef. So those are the most common, but we actually have 4 types, and they are the treble, the alto, the tenor, and the bass clefs. Let's start from the treble clef. Look at the sign of this treble clef. Look at how beautiful this sign is. Don't worry, you don't need to be an artist to be able to draw this. Can you see my cursor, the arrow? Can you see the cursor?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, thank you. All right, so if you want to draw this, you will make a line. If you want to draw this, you will make a line to cross this second line. You will make a line to cross this second line. And this second line of the staff is called a G line. It's called G. It's a G line, okay? Don't forget that. The second line of the staff, the second line, when you want to name this line, this second line is called the G line, okay? So when in order for you to draw this properly, you will start your drawing by making this sign to cross over the G line. You'll just be following my cursor. It crosses over the G line. And then when it crosses over the G line, then you go like this, and then you turn it up, and then you go down, it crosses down, and then you have your G line, your G clef. Okay, so it is very important for you to know that the G clef starts from the G line. Because with that now, we will be able to now fix all the alphabets that we use in music. Okay, so if G is in the second line, then the next thing that follows G, that's the space. If you see the stave I'm pointing at right now, you will see that there's a space that follows G. What is gonna be there? You can see it's gonna be hey. We're not going to H, okay? You know, in English alphabet, it's going to be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Instead of us to put H after G, it's not going to be H now. We're just going to put hey. And then the next structure or the next thing you find there is a line. So it's going to be B, isn't it? Then the next thing that you find after B is going to be a space, okay? And that's going to be C. And then the next one you find will be a line, which is going to be D. And then the next one is going to be E. And then the next one is going to be F. Okay, below G in music in English alphabet, what's below G? It has to be F. Because you have F, G, E, F, G, remember? So below F is going to be E. So that's why let us disintegrate this now. Let's divide it into lines and spaces. You're going to have something like this. If we disintegrate it into lines and spaces, you're going to have something like this. We're separating the letter names now of the lines and the spaces. It means that you have E, G, B, D, F as the lines, and what you have as the spaces are F, A, C, E. Yes. So now, for you to quickly remember all these notations, that's why you have this E, just have an acronym here that says every good boy does fine, okay? So that you know that if I ask you now, can you name the lines of the G stave or the treble stave? Okay, then you know that, oh, that's every good boy does fine. That's E, G, B, D, F. But the spaces are going to be, we don't even need to fix an acronym, like fix a word for each letter in the spaces. You just have face. Face is something to remember. My face, your face. Okay, face. So now it's easier for us to remember the letter names of all the lines and the spaces in the treble stave. Now you need to quickly do something for me now. I want you to draw a staff. Draw a staff. In your note, draw a staff now. Do you know what a staff is? If you can remember, I will remind you. A staff constitutes 5 lines and 4 spaces. Remember, it's not just 5 lines, 5 parallel lines, okay? 5 parallel lines and 4 spaces, okay? If you have drawn yours now, you can, if you have drawn yours now, I want you to turn your staff to a stave. Turn your staff to a stave by putting a G clef. Okay, let me show it to you. Turn your staff to a stave by putting a G clef at the beginning of the staff. Put a G clef at the beginning of the staff. Follow the drawing the way I've put it here. Remember, you are starting on the second line. You're starting on the second line of the staff. You will draw it. It's going to move up and then down below that second line. It touches the first line. Then you move it up and then you go up and then go down. It crosses where you started from and then below the first line. If you have drawn yours successfully, can you raise up your hand? I mean, can you, you may not raise up your hand. Okay, just say yes. If you've drawn yours successfully, just say yes.
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 Okay, do we have anyone who has not drawn his or her own? Do we have anyone like that? Okay. Victor, have you drawn yours?
Yes.
A4, have you drawn yours? B3, have you drawn yours? A5, have you drawn yours?
I've drawn mine.
Okay, thank you. A5, are you there?
Sir. Yes,
Have you
sir.
drawn yours?
Yes, sir.
Okay. A4, have you
I've
drawn
drawn,
yours?
sir. Drawn.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so that means now that you can now draw the treble stave. It has transformed from a staff to a stave now. Okay, label your stave correctly now, please. Label it correctly. Be sure you have labeled it correctly. without looking at my slide, you will remember that the second line is the G line. If you remember that the second line is the G line, then label it correctly, going by the English alphabet. Remember that there's no H when we put in these alphabets in music, okay? Label it correctly. If you have labeled it correctly, cross-check with what we have on the slides now. Cross-check with what we have on the slides. Remember the lines E, G, B, D, F, the spaces F, A, C, E. Check if you're correct. All right. Okay. If you are correct, then you have really done well. Let's move on to autoclave. You know, I told you that we do not have only one clef. We have 4 types of clef. But the most common ones are the treble clef and the bass clef, okay? But now there is still autoclave and the tenor clef, which makes it 4. Let's look at the autoclave. Look at the symbol of the autoclave. It's quite different from the G clef, okay? The autoclave is quite different from the G clef or the treble clef. It's more like you're writing a B, okay? It's more like you're writing a B, but you will see that there's some form of double line, and then this curve goes and on and on. Now, you need to take note that the center point of your B shape in this autoclave forms on the 3rd line this time around. It forms on the 3rd line this time around. And this 3rd line this time around is referred to as the middle C. It's referred to as the middle C in this particular stave. So when you put an autoclave at the beginning, when you put an autoclave at the beginning of your staff, sorry, if you put an autoclave at the beginning of your staff, then it becomes an autostave, isn't it? It becomes an autostave. And remember, the 3rd line is now C in the autostave. Now, if you can draw this, please try and draw this right now. Draw this on your own notebook now. Draw this on your own notebook now. And label them accordingly, knowing that the 3rd line is C. Knowing that the 3rd line is C, label it accordingly with the alphabets. Can you put it as the one above has to be D and below C will be B, okay? If you have done that, you will have something like this. You will have something like this, okay? You will have something like this, okay? Now let us see if you divide the lines from the spaces, what are you gonna have? You have F, A, C, E, G for the lines. F, A, C, E, G for the lines. Cross-check with your own now. And then the spaces are gonna be G, B, D, F. G, B, D, F. If you have labeled it correctly, that's what you're supposed to have. Let's go to the tenor clef because of our time. The tenor clef is similar to the autoclave. The tenor clef is similar to the autoclave, but the difference is that now the center point of that B sign is going to be on the 4th line. Can you try to draw your own as well? The center point of that B shape now is going to be on the 4th line. The center point of that B shape is going to be on the 4th line, and that is going to be your C now. That's going to be your C now. And if that is your C now, try to label these lines and the spaces. It means that the next space above C is going to be D, while the space below C is going to be B. Can you label in your own notebook now and see if you're going to get this correctly? You can see it on my slide. You're free to look at the slide. You're free to look at the slide. You can see that this is how it's going to be. Let's disintegrate it as well into lines and spaces. You're going to have D, F, A, C, E as the lines. And then the spaces are going to be E, G, B, D. Okay, so that's what you have on a tenor stave. Let's go to the bass clef. This one is a common one. The bass clef and the treble clef are the most common out of all these clef. Okay, the bass clef is also known as the F clef. You recall that another word for the treble clef is G clef, but the other word for the bass clef is F clef. All right. Okay, so the F clef originates from the fourth line as well, but this fourth line is not called C now, unlike the tenor clef. This fourth line is called F. Okay, so it's called F here, and if you try to draw this F clef, you will start your drawing from the fourth line. If you're following my cursor, you will see how I'm trying to draw it for you to see. You will start from the fourth line, and then you draw it in such a way that it touches the fifth line, and then it goes down and down to the second line. It crosses the second line as if it's going towards the first line. All right, so that fourth line is named F. Of course, don't forget to put your 2 colon in front of that sign. Okay, that fourth line is called F. Now try to name them, put alphabets there, just like we've been doing, to see if you're going to be correct. The space below F is going to be E, while the space above F is going to be G. All right. So try to name them and let's see if you're going to be correct. Let's see if we break them into lines and spaces. You're going to have your lines to be G, B, D, F, A. That's good boy does fine, always. Good boy does fine, always. Okay, but for the spaces, you can say, all cows eat grass. That's an acronym for them. Okay, instead of you to even say all cows eat grass, if you don't want to say that, you can just say ASEG. ACEG looks like a word, but there's no word like ASEG anyway. Okay, but looks like a word, ASEG. So if I want to remember the spaces of the F clef, ASEG. If I want to remember the lines of the F clef, good boy does fine, always. Okay, so these are the two common staves in music. Is the two most common staves in music is the F stave or the bass stave, and the G stave or the treble stave. All right. I want you to do something. I'm going to ask a question now, and you will raise up your hand. There's a way you can raise up your hand in the buttons if you can look at it very well. You will raise up your hand. Can you tell me the major difference between the lines of the treble stave and the F or the bass stave? What's the major difference? I need someone to compare the two. Perhaps let me go back and make you see what the treble stave is again. Look at the treble stave here. Can you see the lines and the spaces? I believe you can see now. Okay, now we know what the acronyms are standing for. Now let's go to the F stave, the bass stave. What's the major difference between the lines of the treble stave and the bass stave? Okay, even if you cannot raise up your hand, just unmute your mic and talk.
So can I say something?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Well, the major difference I'm observing is that for the treble clef, the first is it notes? I'll call it all the E, G, B, D, F.
Yep.
They are, yeah, for the first one, the first line where starts with E
All right.
and
Cool.
ends with F for the treble clef. For the lines, for the
For the
notes we have
treble
on the line.
stave.
Yeah, for this treble, yes, treble staves, sorry. Why for the
Okay.
bass? Why for the bass, the first one starts with G and ends with A.
Very good. Very good. Now I want another person to tell me the difference between the spaces of the treble stave and the bass stave. Yeah. Another person. A difference. Let me go show you again what you have on the treble stave. This is what you have on the treble stave, the spaces. All right, now let's go to the bass stave. What's the difference? You can tell me. Yes. A5, can you help? Can I hear from you, A5?
Yes, sir.
A5, can you tell us?
The difference. Yes, sir. In the treble style, a treble clef now. The spaces they start from a F, got F A C E. Whereas on our bass clef, the spaces we've got they start from letter A space that is labeled as letter A to G.
Very good. So it's A, C, E, G on the bass stave, and it is F, A, C, E on the treble stave. Okay. Do you still remember the difference between a stave and a clef? A4. Tell me the difference between a stave and a staff, rather. A stave and a staff. Yeah, the difference between a stave and a staff. Okay.
The stave is just the lines, while the stave is when you've got when you put the music sign in front of this staff, then it becomes a stave.
Okay, A4, the stave is just the lines alone.
So when you put the clef in front of the staff, it becomes a stave.
Okay, when you put the clef in front of the lines.
The staff, yeah, it becomes the stave.
Okay, all right. Okay, you remember it's lines and spaces, not just lines.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, A4. So it's when you have the lines and the spaces alone, that's just the stuff. But when you put your clef at the beginning of your staff, okay, then it becomes a stave. And we have how many types of clef now? A5. How many types of clef do we have?
We've got 4 types of clef, sir.
Pardon?
We've got 4 types, sir.
4 types, thank you. 4 types of clef. B3, can you try to tell us the types of clefs we have?
Okay, we have 4 types of clef: the treble or G clef, the F or bass clef, the alto clef, and the tenor clef.
Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to another aspect of music. I'm excited that you're learning very fast now. this is the last aspect we're going to be considering for the day before we close for today. I will see if we can consider more, but we are finishing by 2 o'clock. So right now, let's just move on to ledger lines and bar lines. Ledger lines and bar lines. Okay. Ledger lines, when you're reading music, a piece of music, whether you're on the treble stave or the bass clave or the autoclave or the tenor clave, you can have some lines being put as additional lines, whether below or above the stave. You see, composers, music composers might like to put some notes that are higher than the stave. And now they have to create some lines. It will not be a complete line, okay? They will just be short lines. So we can say ledger lines. We can say ledger lines are short broken lines that are used to extend the stave either upwards or downwards. Ledger lines, if you like to jot, you can jot. Ledger lines are short broken lines that are used to extend the stave either upwards or downwards. So it means that even though try to look at your treble stave again. What's the last line? What's the last line? What's the name of the last line on the treble stave? Who can tell us the name of the last line on the treble stave? Who can tell us what that is?
E.
Treble is.
Remember, you're naming it from bottom upwards. So
F.
So it means that the last one is up, okay? So now, what is the name of that line up there?
E.
It's an F.
It's F.
An F.
If you support that, if you support that it is E, if you support that it is E, say yes.
Yes.
Okay. If you say that it is F, say yes.
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 Oh, we have more yeses for F than E. Okay. So it is not E, it is F. Because you remember we used to name it. Look at my cursor. We used to name it from bottom up. So if we're naming from bottom up, then it means that the one at the bottom is 1, the second line is 2, the third is 3, the fourth is 4, the fifth is 5. So you remember now that the last one is F. Okay, where I'm going is this, as regards to ledger lines. If this last line is F, now we have drawn another line above it. Okay, now the space between this last line and the short line we have drawn will be called what?
G.
G, very good. Because there is no, remember, it is FG. Okay, after G, we will now name this ledger line. This short line is called the ledger line. And what's the name we're gonna give it after G?
A.
A. It's not gonna be H. We're going back to A. Okay. All right. Thank you. Now let's draw another another short line, another ledger line above A. Okay. That is where you have the second one here. Now the space above A is going to be what?
B.
B. Now the ledger line above B is going to be called what?
C.
C. Because it's A, B, C. Okay. Let's go below the stave because we said ledger lines are short broken lines. They are used to extend the stave either upwards or downwards. All right. Now let's look at the line below the stave. Remember, okay, what's the name of the line, the first line on the treble stave? What's the name?
E.
E, okay. Now, if we draw in a short line below this first one, then it means that the space in between this short line and the first line is going to be called what?
D.
It's going to be called D. Very good. Now the line D. Okay, so it's going to be called what?
C.
It has to be called C. So usually in music, we call this line that comes immediately. That's this ledger line that comes immediately below the first line of the G stave. We call that line middle C. It's the middle C because if you start writing downwards again, it continues and enters into the F stave. Okay, perhaps you're going to know that later. All right. So this is your first assignment. This is your first assignment now. Write it down, assignment number 1. Unfortunately, I don't have it in my slides here. Assignment number 1, you will draw a treble stave and you will draw an F stave or the bass stave below it. Draw this treble stave and the bass stave below the treble stave. Now, after you have done that, you will now label all the lines and spaces. But make sure that the way you label them, the lines and spaces are continuous. For example, now, you have middle C here, you have C here as a ledger line. You have to put this ledger line. Don't forget this middle C.
All right.
Okay, so to make your assignment simple now, what I want from you is draw the treble stave and draw the bass stave below the treble stave. Label all the lines and spaces and include middle C. That's what I expect from you. Let me come again. Draw the treble stave and the bass stave. Label all the lines and the spaces. Include middle C. That's your assignment. Include middle C.
Label the lines and spaces.
Label the lines and spaces.
Okay.
Include middle C. Yeah. Don't worry, I'm going to send you your lecture notes. Okay, what also I'm expecting from you is that when you have drawn that, you will snap it, okay? You will snap what you have drawn and you will post it to me privately, okay? Remember how you are going to submit that assignment? You will draw it properly. You will snap it. After you have snapped it, you will send it to me on my WhatsApp, okay? All right. Now, let's go to bar lines now. Bar lines. Often when you read music, you will see some strokes of lines. Often when you read music, you will see some strokes of lines. These are called bar lines. Bar line is a vertical line that is drawn across the staff or stave, okay? It divides a piece of music into equal bars or measures. It divides a piece of music into equal bars or measures. A double bar line signifies the end of the music or the end of a part of it. Okay, when you have a double bar line, that means that that's the end of that piece of music, or that's the end of that aspect, that part of music. But if it's a single bar line, that's not the end of the music. It's just grouping that music into that measure. That's a measure. Okay, that's the measure of the notes. Okay, that's the measure of the beats. That's what bar lines do. So it's bar lines are vertical lines are drawn across the staff or stave. It divides the music into equal bars or measures. All right. All right. Okay, praise the Lord. I think today we're going to end here for today. I will continue our class at another time. Probably we're going to continue this class sometime at the end of the week or next week. But I'm going to get back to you on when exactly the next class is going to be. Just make sure you're following the WhatsApp so that we will learn the other exciting parts, accidentals, and identifying the keys on the keyboard, then the musical notes, values, and rests. These are what we want to look at. Interesting aspect of music. These are what we want to look at eventually. Then you're going to be able to do your assignment. Okay. There's this assignment that's inside your lecture notes. You're going to see it by the time I send it to you, but you will only be able to answer them after the second class. All right. Till then, I wish you a wonderful time. I do hope that you have really learned a lot from what we have done. I do hope you have learned a lot from what we have done right now. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, thank you.